Greetings and welcome, my fellow church members, my fellow church family. Thanks for joining. So, we just want to continue doing our Sunday school recap in these videos. So, we would have been having our Sunday schools and we would have been going through Matthew 1 with an intention to go through the series of the book of Matthew, going through the New Testament, going through verse by verse, which is line upon line, precept upon precept, as the Bible directs us to, and to see what revelation does God have for us in each verses, what revelation does God have for us in each chapter. As we know, the New Testament represents the last days, the time since Jesus Christ, and it would have been revealed in Matthew 1 verses 17. When we read that verse, the main message that we would have gotten would have confirmed that we serve a God that is a God of pattern, a God of time. And he intentionally wanted us to see that he is a God of pattern, a God of time. He works according to a system. So that was one of the main topics that we would have gotten from Matthew 1, that God is a God of pattern and God is a God of time. We also would have seen that coming out the conception of Jesus Christ, would have seen that from Matthew 1, 18 to 25. So now we want to move on to Matthew 2 to see what revelations we get. And yes, we would have done this already in Sunday school, for this is just a recap. When we did it, the topic that we got was that God is a God of prophecies and purpose. Whatever it says must come to pass. All right, that's what we got when we went through Matthew 2. So we're just going to quickly just recap what we got from Matthew 2 as we went through it. All right, for your remembrance. All right, so let us quickly just change the view. All right, so Matthew 2 starting from verse 1. So now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him. So the question was asked, how would they have known that Jesus that was to be born is King of the Jews? Where did they get that from? So it would have been revealed. I would have revealed that all the prophets that came on before would have prophesied the coming of Jesus Christ. Even persons that we thought were not prophets were making prophetic statements. And one of those persons would have been Jacob. Jacob would have prophesied Jesus in Genesis. That would have been Genesis 49 verses 10. So Jacob in Genesis 49 verses 10, while he was blessing each of his sons, would have said this to Judah: Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down, he couched as a lion, and as an old lion who shall rouse him up. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, for a lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh come. So this was Jacob revealing that there's going to be a scepter, and scepter means a rod that a king will hold in his hand. Says the scepter shall not depart from Judah. So we know that God would have given the revelation to David that there will always be a king that sits on the throne in Jerusalem, and Jesus will sit on the throne in the new Jerusalem that will come down from heaven forever and ever. Jesus is called the Lion of the tribe of Judah. So Jesus is the one that comes from the tribe of Judah that will continue to sit on the throne forever. Jacob would have prophesied to Judah that it is through his lineage that the scepter shall not depart from Judah, prophesying that a lawgiver from between his feet unto Shiloh come. Right? So the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come. So this is Judah prophesying right here the coming of Jesus Christ, that is going to be a great one that is going to come through the lineage of Judah. We also seen where Balak, the book of Numbers, and this was when Balak went into a trance, when the parable of God, the words of God came into his mouth when he was trying to curse Israel. And this is what he saw when he looked in the spirit. He says, I shall see him, but now I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel, and shall smite the corners of Moab, and destroy all the children of Sheth. So this was Balaam prophesying that there's going to be a scepter that shall rise up out of Israel. So all the prophets, Moses in Deuteronomy 18 as well, would have told the children of Israel that that the Lord will rise up one like him from among the people. Him you shall hear. So God would have been referring to all the prophets that would come after Moses, but the main prophet that would eventually come that you should definitely hear, that would be Jesus Christ. And I will add those some of these verses down below, so you can look for those verses down below, and you can always pause and go and read them for yourself. All right, so let's go back to Matthew 2. So Isaiah would have been the main one that would have prophesied the coming of Jesus Christ in so many ways. And these prophets before, these wise men, would have had the books, the Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, the Numbers, the Deuteronomy. They would have had book like Psalms that they would have had. They would have had, especially the book of Isaiah. They would have had these books in their time that they would read these things that were to come to pass. So when Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. So the name Herod is introduced here. So who is Herod? Herod is a king from among the Romans. So at this time, the children of Israel would have been cast over into captivity. And when they were cast into captivity, they no longer had their own king. So they would have had David as a king. They would have had the rejected Saul as a king. They would have had the lineage of Judah. But throughout that time, because they were so rebellious against God continuously, God would have cast them over into Babylon. So from the time of Babylon, they would have been under the power of Babylon. They would have then been under the power of Media. They would have been under the power of Persia. They would have been under the power of Greece. And now we are seeing that they are under the power of the Romans. So Herod is a king that is from the lineage of the Romans. Is a Roman king. So the children of Israel did not have their own king at this time. They were under the kingship of the Romans. The Romans were basically ruling over them. All right. So he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he demanded of them where Christ should be born. And they said unto him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet. So it is then now being revealed where the wise men got the information from that the king of the Jews is going to rise up. They are revealing for this, and they said unto him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet, and though Bethlehem in the land of Judah art not the least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel. So let us quickly see where they got this from. So they would have gotten this from Micah 5 verses 2. So they would have had access to the book of Micah. Micah verses 2. And here it says, But thou Bethlehem, Ephratah, though be little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of thee shall he come forth unto me that is to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth have been from old, from everlasting. So we see the fulfillment of prophecies coming out. So this would have been 400 and something years earlier that Micah would have gotten this prophecy. And then you now see it coming out in the book of Matthew 2 years later. And these wise men would have read these verses and now are believing what they would have read and now are coming to prove what they have already read because they expect it to come to pass. All right? So they are quoting something that was said years ago, and that was said by the prophet Micah. All right? Then Herod, when he had privily called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, Go and search diligently for the young child. And when ye have found him, bring me word again, that I may come and worship him also. So, we would have asked the question, do you think Herod really wants to worship the son that is going to be born, King of the Jews? It already said it above that he was troubled in his heart when he heard about this King of the Jews that was going to be born. So we know that Herod was trying to be evil, and he was not trying to be, he was being evil. He was trying to be cunning because he had plans to kill Jesus Christ as that evil. So Herod is one of those type of kings that you call a beast. He represents a beast, those great men that can do what they feel like they want to do, and nobody can stand up against them. These type of men can cause famine in the world, as I would have revealed in our last Sunday school. These are great, powerful men. These men can cause famine in the entire world. They are called world rulers. They are beasts. When they had heard the king, they departed, and lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. How would they have known about the star as well? Let me see if I can find that. Isaiah 60 verses 3. Let us see if the book of Isaiah had revealed. How do they know about the star? Isaiah 60 verses 3. So the book of Isaiah 60 verses 3 said this. So it's revealing that these wise men were actually Gentiles. Gentiles meaning that they were not Israelites. They came from other nations. So it says, And the Gentiles shall come to thy light, and kings to the brightness of thy rising. So this is what they would have interpreted to know that a star, a light, shall lead them to Jesus Christ. So these men were wise men. These men were able to interpret these scriptures to know exactly what it means. And the Gentiles shall come to thy light, and kings to the brightness of thy rising. All right? So when they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. Why did they rejoice? They rejoiced because they knew that God was using that star to guide them, that star to lead them to the King of the Jews, to Jesus Christ. And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. So these Gentile Jews, they were not Israelites. They bowed down and worshipped Jesus. They worshipped Jesus. They knew that he was King of the Jews, and obviously they believed. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And one of you would have revealed what I didn't even see, that the gold represents the standard of Jesus. They're giving him the best sacrifice, the best gift. The gold representing the standard of Jesus, kingship. Frankincense, we know that frankincense represents a scent that goes up to God. It represents worship, right? Our praise goes up to him like frankincense, a smell that goes up to heaven. And the myrrh, we know that myrrh would have been that thing that they would have put on his body at death. So kingship, worship, death coming out here. And I do agree with that interpretation from Minister Tracy. And being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way. So this is one of the main ways that God speaks to his people. And God would have spoken to the wise men in a dream, which means that they would have fell asleep. If it was a trance, meaning that they were not in any deep sleep, but God put them in a state where he showed them something, but they didn't go into a trance. So it says that dreams means that they slept. So they were warned in a dream that they should not return to Herod. They departed into their own country another way. Alright? So we are seeing the fulfillment of prophecies, the fulfillment of purpose. God will do what he needs to do to ensure that his purpose are fulfilled and his prophecies are fulfilled. His words will not go void. So he will not let his prophets be ashamed. Whatever they prophesied years ago is now being fulfilled years later. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word. For Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. So, we see it again. God speaking to his servant, speaking to Joseph through a dream, which is one of the main ways that God speaks to his people in these last days. Moses he spoke to face, but Miriam and Aaron, and if there be any prophet among them, he says in Numbers 12, I speak to you in dreams, but Moses I speak to face. Not many people get to see God face to face and meet God face to face and talk to God face to face. Alright? We know that we would have gone through it before. We said God also speaks through discernment. In various ways you can discern what is happening. You can discern what is going on in the spiritual realm. You can sense what is going on in the spiritual realm. You can sense even an evil person that is in your presence. You can sense this. So God can speak to you through discernment. We would have revealed as well that God speaks to you by hardening your heart and laying things on your heart. You have to do what he wants to do. He turns your yes into no, and we would have revealed that through how he dealt with Pharaoh as well. How he hardened Pharaoh's heart until all the 10 plagues were passed. We would have revealed how he hardened Rehoboam's heart as well. So God speaks in these various ways. But the main way that God speaks and gives messages is in dreams. It says, Arise and take the young child and his mother and flee into Egypt and be thou there until I bring thee word. For Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. So Herod here is representing enemy. So when he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed into Egypt. And he says, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken of the prophet by the prophet, saying, Out of Egypt have I called my son. So God would have allowed it to happen this way because the prophecy of the prophet must be fulfilled. So it would have been prophesied before. And I think this was, so Hosea 11 verses 1. Another prophet, a different prophet, prophesying the coming of Jesus again. So it says, When Israel was a child, then I loved him and called my son out of Egypt. So when we read this, we probably would not even have picked up that this was actually prophesying that Jesus would be called out of Egypt. But here it says it here, that out of Egypt have I called my son. So the prophet at this time is saying this, probably don't even know that he was prophesying the coming of Jesus Christ. And was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by of the Lord by the prophet. So it was spoken to Hosea. So we see where something was said through Micah. Now we are seeing where something was said through Hosea. We will see where something was said through Isaiah. All prophesying the coming of Jesus Christ, and then God is now ensuring that it is fulfilled. And it is fulfilled to the T, exactly as God wants it to be. So out of Egypt have I called my son. We would have seen where one of the prophets as well would have prophesied that out of little Bethlehem shall rise up the ruler out of them. God ensured that is going to ensure that he comes. He's born. God ensured that he was born in Bethlehem. So God ensures that the prophecies of his prophets are fulfilled accurately how God wants it, and God ensures that he works everything to ensure that it happens exactly that way. So God is in control, which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, out of Egypt have I called my son. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wrath. Use another color. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wrath, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem, and in all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old and honor, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. So we see the amount of power that this man has. That this man can make a decree to kill all children that are 2 years old and younger. And nobody rises up against him. No nations rise up against him. Because this man was a world ruler. So he represents a beast. Nebuchadnezzar would have been a world ruler at his time when he would have conquered Israel. He would have been a world ruler, right? And would have destroyed the temple, right? He was a world ruler, right? We later see Herod coming, being able to do this. Nobody rising up against him. Is a world ruler. The kings of Persia that would have destroyed Babylon, Media that would have destroyed Babylon, Grecia. Those would have been beast kings in beast countries. Alright, and we find this revelation in the book of Daniel 8. Alright, so the other world rulers that would have come would have been Claudius Caesar. One of the apostles prophesied that under Claudius Caesar there's going to be famine in the entire world. That shows the amount of power that man had in that time. We would have heard of Titus Caesar. That was AD 70. That was after scriptures, or within the time of scriptures, probably in the time of John. During that time is when Jesus' prophecy would have been fulfilled of the temple that was going to be destroyed. Hence the reason why the temple in Israel now is destroyed and has not been built back since. It was destroyed under a powerful beast king called Titus Caesar. So these men are beast king. They can make these type of declarations and nobody can stand up against them because they are world rulers. Nobody dares stand up against them because they have armies behind them. They have power because of strong armies behind them. So nobody dares stand up against them. Alright? So then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet, saying, in Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentation and weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and would not be comforted because they are not. So Jeremy here is referring to Jeremiah. So we're seeing the translation from Aramaic here. So from Hebrew it's translated Jeremiah, but when it is translated from Aramaic it's translated to Jeremy. The same person. The same reason why Jesus is known by God. So the name Jesus from Hebrew is pronounced Yeshua. But when it is translated from Aramaic, we end up with Jesus, or Jesus, or Jesus. Alright? The same Jesus, and God knows the name of his son in every language. So we don't have to go about arguing with people that saying that that is some fake name and some false name. It is based on the language that it was translated from. And God, who is the author of many languages, right, which came about in the Tower of Babel time, knows his name and the name of his son in every different languages. The Lord, Adonai, Jesus, Yeshua. He knows his name. So he says that this was fulfilled that was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet, saying. So this would have already been prophesied by Jeremiah, and it is now coming to pass. And I think that was Jeremiah 31 verses 15. Jeremiah 31 verses 15. It says, "Thus saith the Lord, a voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation and bitter weeping. Rahel." So it says Rahel weeping. So R-H-E-L. But if we look at it here, it's not pronounced Rahel. It says Rachel. So there's no C. So it means that there was no corresponding letter in the Hebrew language for C at this time. So at this time, it was pronounced Rahel, but when it's translated from Aramaic, it says Rachel. All right. So don't let no one confuse you. So fulfillment of prophecies. So Herod killing all the children is the fulfillment of Jeremiah already telling the children of Israel what is going to happen years later. Thus saith the Lord, a voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation and bitter weeping. Rahel weeping for her children, refused to be comforted for her children because they were not. So Rachel weeping for her children, refused to be comforted for her children because they were not. They were not means that they were killed. They were murdered. They were no longer around. Alright? So this was prophesied years before. 400 and something years before. Alright, 70 by 7. Multiply 70 by 7. You get the number of years before that would have occurred. Alright? So, and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children and would not be comforted because they are not. Alright? But when Herod was dead, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt. So God speaking to him through a dream again, saying, arise and take the young child and his mother and go into the land of Israel, for they are dead which sought the young child's life. Alright? And he arose and took the young child and his mother and came into the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus did reign in Judea in the room of his father Herod, he was afraid to go thither. Alright, let me read that again in a bit more beautiful color. But when he heard that Archelaus did reign in Judea in the room of his father Herod, he was afraid to go thither. Notwithstanding being warned of God in a dream, he turned aside into the parts of Galilee. So God talking through a dream again. And he came and dwelt in a city. So God warned him that he does not need to be afraid. Right? So he wanted to turn away, but God warned him so that he ended up in Galilee. And why did God ensure that he warned him for him to go to Galilee? Because there's a prophecy that must be fulfilled. And if you allow God's words to fall void, which cannot fall void, God will destroy you for it. Alright? Just as prophecies came to Jonah that needed to be fulfilled, and Jonah wanted to move away from the prophecies that were given, God ensured that he did what he had to do to ensure that that prophecy was fulfilled. Right? And he came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled. So hence the topic that we get, the fulfillment of prophecy. So many times we see it. This was done so that a prophecy can be fulfilled. We are seeing this coming out so often. This was done so that this prophecy can be fulfilled. God ensures that he moves, he gives them dreams, tells him what to do, tells them where to go, approaches them, give them this dream, give the wise men dream, leading them in the direction that he wants them to go. Because what? There are prophecies that must be fulfilled. All right, and the biggest prophecy that was fulfilled here was that Emmanuel, God with us, came into the world. Jesus was born. All right, that was the biggest prophecy that was fulfilled, and that came from Isaiah 7. I think Isaiah 7 verses 14. Isaiah 7 verses 14. I put it down there. God would have prophesied to Ezekiah that this is a sign that is going to show you that a son shall be born of a virgin, and he was born of the Virgin Mary. So that's the biggest prophecy that is being fulfilled here. Jesus was born of Mary, as God prophesied that it would have happened through the Virgin Mary, and everybody knows this. So hence the fulfillment of prophecies. And he came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophets. He shall be called a Nazarene. All right, and we can quickly see which prophet would have prophesied this. All right, so the prophet would have been, this was said all the way back in Judges 13 verses 5. Judges 13 verses 5. All the way. Verses in Judges 13. Wow. For lo, thou shalt conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come on his head. For the child shall be a Nazarite unto God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. So at this time, this prophecy would have been Samson that was being prophesied here. But later, we see that this truly represents Jesus Christ. So even though it was Samson that this would have been making reference to here, for lo, thou shalt conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come on his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite unto God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the land of the Philistines. We see that, and he came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophets. He shall be called a Nazarene. All right. So the fulfillment of things that were said years ago. All right. The book of Judges would have been over 400 years ago, more than 400 years ago. All right. What was fulfilled, that he shall be called a Nazarene. So the fulfillment of prophecies and the fulfillment of purposes. God ensures that he gives his prophets dreams and the wise men dreams, because they are prophecies that must be fulfilled. Jesus coming out of Egypt, Jesus being born in Bethlehem, Jesus going to Galilee, calling him out of Egypt. We see that we serve a God that is powerful. We see that we serve a God that is in control of everything, and whatever God wants to be done, no one can stop him. And if you try to stop him, he can destroy you, and he will destroy you for it. Because God holds his words above his name. Hold his words highly. God will destroy a nation so that his words does not fall void. God cannot allow for his name's sake, for his reputation to be affected. So for his name's sake, his prophecies must be fulfilled. All right. Thank you for watching. So hope you learned a lot. So now this leads us into Leviticus 23. We would have gotten to, when we did this in Sunday school, we would have gotten to Matthew 14 or Matthew 13. Then the Holy Spirit in a dream would have led me to Leviticus 23, when he gave me the dream about the Feast of Tabernacles. He gave me that dream on October 15, and the message in it about 8 days would have led us to Leviticus 23, and we got revelations from Leviticus 23 that is life-changing. So that's the next set of videos that I will try my best to get done before we meet on Sunday again. So thank you for watching, and all the best. See you in the next video. Love you so much.